and we'll talk about what e-residency can provide you to run a business, global business online. And maybe just a couple of background numbers, what would be interesting. So we can say that there are approximately 1,500 Dutch nationals who have applied for e-residency, and they have set up approximately 300 companies. So today we'll talk about the benefits and possibilities that it offers. And I remember it was something, I think it was 2 years ago, when we also had an event about e-residency, a physical event, what a luxury, right? In Amsterdam, and which was also very popular, and where we saw that based on the discussions we had, the people were really interested in different taxation and legal issues as well. And that's why we plan to cover these topics also during the webinar this afternoon. We'll have 3 short presentations and a separate Q&A session afterwards. So we'll have plenty of time for all your questions. In case you have some really urgent issues that you want to have answered right away, please use the Q&A tab or box in the middle of your screen. So after each presentation, we'll have a look at this Q&A box to see whether you had something you were afraid of forgetting or whether you have something for the specific presenter. So we always have these 2 options. I think the last but not least, what you all know, of course, already, but please keep yourself muted if you're not speaking. So this should ensure a better quality for our webinar. So I guess we're safe to start now, and I'll give the floor for the warm welcome to our Estonian ambassador in the Netherlands, Kaili Terras. Please, Kaili, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Eva. So I'm Kaili Terras, the Estonian ambassador into the Netherlands, and I'm really here to warmly welcome you with taking your time and joining the webinar about the Estonian e-residency. So this event is organized by the Estonian Embassy together with our very good partners Enterprise Estonia and the company One Office. And as Eva mentioned, we are happily following that the numbers of e-residents is increasing. And we found it really timely and pertinent to have this webinar so that you could to bring you together and to have discussion and respond the questions you may have about the e-residency. So, and this time in video format, which is maybe even better suited to the audience here. So I hope you find this event really useful, informative, and you're going to have a very good discussion. So without further ado, I will give the floor back to Eva. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaili. We'll go further with the first presentation for today. And this is from Mats Kuuskema, who is the head of business strategy at e-Residency. And he will talk about very briefly about what e-residency is exactly and what are the latest developments. So even when you are a e-resident, you'll get to know about the really hot stuff lately. So please, Mats, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thanks very much. Thanks, Ambassador Terras, also for your kind words. And we hope that the next event perhaps we can have at your beautiful embassy house in The Hague at the better times. I will also share a couple of slides, and I will just brief you everyone what is e-residency and what it's for, because there might be some new people to join us also. So first of all, Estonia, as some of you might know, we have quite a well-developed e-governance system in the world. And e-residency essentially is just an idea sort of that people had, that why don't we open our e-governance systems to people outside Estonia? So in a way, it's not really a technological innovation, it's a judicial innovation, because we came up with a new category to give people an identity and a legal category who don't live in Estonia, but they would maybe want to operate in Estonia digitally. And well, I'll come back to sort of more details, but also Estonia has a very highly developed startup ecosystem. We have 5 unicorn companies that have grown out of Estonia. And also e-residents, in some cases, they can register their Estonian company also officially as a startup. And we have quite advantageous startup and digital nomad visa programs if you want to, move people to Estonia to work there and participate in our ecosystem. What is e-residency? It's a secure digital identity. You get a sort of a card and a smart card reader, and you can connect it to later on with different sort of mobile-led IDs as well. You can give digital signature that's valid in the European Union, and you can create and run companies 100% online. And also we've realized that we have grown a global community of very inspiring, entrepreneurial-minded people. So you can also participate in that. What it's not, well, it's not a travel document or a visa, or it also doesn't give you personal tax residency. So if you live in one country stably, you have to pay your personal tax there. And in generally, Tõnis will go into this more. You have to look into your tax case also for the company taxation. We now have, over the last 6 years, we have now 79,000 e-residents, around 16,000 companies. And as Eva correctly mentioned, we have, I think, more than 1,500 e-residents from Dutch nationals, and also Netherlands is it's on the 15th place globally if we look at the countries by citizenship of how many companies have been created by e-residents. So this was actually really surprising for me, because I thought Netherlands always is a very pro-business, free market country. Why would Dutch nationals need to create a company in Estonia? So I just had a look at maybe like comparing a little bit, how it sort of works out. I looked at various indexes just for my own education, just mentioning it here. So in some aspects, Estonia is doing a little better in the ease of doing business, starting a business, paying taxes. Estonia is a little ahead, but not so much. But we do have, OECD's most competitive tax system because of the possibility that you can reinvest your profits and pay 0% on corporate income tax until you really take out dividends. And again, Dennis will cover it later. And also in general, we do have relatively low corruption and a very stable and very independent judiciary. This is also something that is important, if you invest in a country or hold your IP there. And what we have in common with the Netherlands, again, we're active members of the international community in EU, NATO, OECD, a very relatively liberal business environment, highly educated human capital. In Estonia, maybe the difference is also if you want to open an office there, it's still relatively cheap in some aspects. Estonia's average wage is 1,400 euros per month. And also the labor market is quite liberal. It's actually easier to take on people, but also sometimes to let them go. And English is spoken widely in both countries. This is the journey. So if some of you think of, let me become an e-resident, start a company, that's your journey. You go and apply online. You probably have to visit the embassy once, pick up your card, then choose a service provider from our marketplace. And we have a wonderful service provider who's one of our very good partners, One Office, who will speak later. So they're a very good starting point. And then you register a company online, and then you choose a sort of fintech or banking partner that suits your needs. And then you can participate in our community. And the idea is that you never have to come to Estonia for any paperwork. You can do everything online. And that's also one reason perhaps that some Dutch nationals who tend to travel a lot, they're not stable, they found e-residency a good solution for them. There's a picture of our marketplace. You can find One Office there, for example, but they're also fintechs. They're also, for example, country-based, sort of country-focused tax advisories. So Prior Launch is one of them that's also collaborate for this webinar, and One Office will cover their part as well. E-residents are real people. Some of them you might know here, but mostly it's a lot of freelancers, small entrepreneurs who have an idea, but they in general they like to move around a lot in the world, and many of them offer services online. So whether it's management consulting, for example, or any IT related app developments, websites. In some cases, e-commerce is very popular, but also other industries. But anything you can do really online, because that also works a little bit better on tax. And in general, their clients are quite international. And the next steps. So if you're interested to move forward after today, well, general questions about e-residency, talk to our team. Also, I would advise you to sign up for our newsletter if you don't have that yet. Apply for e-Residency, again, from our website, very easy to do. Then find a service provider fitting your needs, but one office is a good option that you have here today. If you want to ask about Estonian taxes, you can actually email our tax board and they'll get back to you. And there's company reporting link is also there. And if any of you sort of work for a maybe let's say a startup ecosystem organization or a university or some entrepreneurship related organization, and you'd like to cover e-Residency for your events, feel free to get in touch with me and we can find maybe a good e-resident to speak or just other collaboration opportunities. So I will stop here. Thank you very much. I'll be here for questions. Thank you, Val.
Thank you much for your presentation. I already saw that there is one question in the Q&A box, which you would maybe like to comment about. This is from Heidi Polman, saying it is not fully to set up online. To set up a bank account, we need to come to Estonia. Would you please comment on that?
Yeah, that's the thing. The banking and finance industry is also sort of seeing a revolution there. And what we've seen is that we actually changed the law in Estonia to allow online interviews for banks. But because e-residence is still a small segment for them, they've chosen not to. We have one banking partner, LHV, that works with a lot of e-resident companies, but actually most e-residents choose to have a fintech company to give them bank account, which is pretty much the same, to be honest, in practice. It just doesn't give you a sort of traditional, maybe commercial loans. That's one thing they don't have. We have Wise, well, formerly TransferWise, Payoneer, Paysera, Stripe, they're all very popular solutions, and most e-residents, they don't really need a traditional bank account. But if they really want to, if they do, then they would do that one trip to Tallinn, and usually they're pretty happy with that as well. So I guess you can hear more from Remco about how it's like in reality. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I see some other questions in the Q&A box, but I think these have to do with taxes, so we'll probably save these for the last presenter who will talk about legal and taxing issues, unless, Mats, you say, no, this is something I want to cover right away.
I think also we normally have a lot of questions actually afterwards, so maybe it's easier if we come back to all of them together, then we can sort of really do it efficiently.
Yes, sure. So we can take the taxing questions all together in the end. Okay, very good. So we'll save these questions for later, and then we move forward to Remco Timmermans, who is a Dutch e-resident and running a global business in the space business, being a professional in that regard, and already saw that it's going to talk about rocket science, right? So please do, the floor is yours, Remco.
Thank you very much, Eva, for this kind introduction. And thank you very much, Ambassador Terras, Mats and Lar, for inviting me. It's a great honor. And goedemiddag to all participants. I'm really happy to talk to my fellow Dutch entrepreneurs about the opportunities offered for business in Estonia. I am one of those 1,500 Dutch nationals who has e-Residency, and I'm one of the, if I understood correctly, Mats, 300 companies owned by Dutch nationals in Estonia. So what I'm going to tell you right now is a little bit about what I do and a little bit more about why I do this in Estonia and what I find the benefit of running my business in Estonia is. So first of all, let me introduce myself a little bit further. My name is Remco Timmermans, as you can now read, and I'm a social media specialist for space. So I fall deeply into that category that Mats described as people working online, working in the digital economy, doing business mostly online. And I'll explain a little bit about what that means. But first of all, social media specialist for space. What does that mean? And let me see how I move to the next slide. Yeah, there we go. I do a lot of stuff, and people have different opinions of what it is that I do. My friends think I attend rocket launches every week. My parents think I fly around the world and do all kinds of interesting but completely unknown stuff in different countries around the world. Society often asks me, are you an astronaut if you work in space? Well, I could be, but clearly I'm not. My customers think I hang out with space geeks doing all kinds of strange things with space characters. But what I like to think is that I tell interesting stories about what the space industry is for my clients. Social media is all about storytelling, and that's really what I do. And what that really means is in the lower right-hand corner, is sitting in this office where I'm sitting right now. You can see the background behind me, and doing social media campaigns for my clients. I'm a Dutch national, as I said before. I don't live in the Netherlands, though. I'm one of those digital nomads. I haven't lived in the Netherlands for several years now. I'm currently based in the UK, so I live and work close to one of the largest space campuses, space science campuses in Europe, being in Harwell in the UK. I moved here before Brexit. There were lots of opportunities here. Things have changed a little bit, and that is related to why I'm doing my business in Estonia right now. Before I lived in the UK, I lived in Spain, and before that I did business in the Netherlands, but traveling all around the world, like hopefully many of you do as sort of digital nomads. The little red pins here indicate some of the locations where my current clients are based, and that is really everywhere over the globe, but my main focus is in the European space sector. Some of my customers, you've probably not heard about all of these unless you work in the space industry, because I don't work for NASA. I don't work for NASA. I don't work, well, I work with the European Space Agency, but I don't work for the European Space Agency, but I rather work for many smaller organizations that are active in the European space industry, ranging from NGOs to government-related organizations, but also to lots of commercial space companies, of which we have many in Europe. In fact, we have more small and medium-sized space businesses than the United States has, for example. Very few people know that, but the European space business is thriving at the moment. A little bit, a 101 on what the space industry is, because many people think of what we in the space industry call old space. And that is not always the right way of looking at the space industry in 2021. Old space, as we all know it from the 1950s to the 1980s, is government-driven, run by the US, by Russia, the Soviet Union and Russia, China perhaps, a little bit in the EU, large missions, very long missions in the sense that they take 20 years to come to fruition, heavy focus on human space flight, very, very expensive. That's why it's used to be only affordable by governments to run these programs. And you've all heard about the Apollo program, bringing people to the moon, the space shuttle program, the Mir station, the International Space Station. That is what we refer to as old space. Nowadays, since about 20, depending on how you define it, between 10 and 30 years, we talk about new space. And new space is a whole different world, and is very different from what most people see the space industry to be. New space is all about commercial space, about the private sector being active in space, the government focusing on the very long-term, very far away Mars missions, all the very expensive stuff. But the real money now is in new space, and this is not driven in the same countries that we saw before. This is really a worldwide thing. This is where the European space industry, to a large extent, fits in. This is the domain of small and medium-sized companies. This is a world that evolves around small satellites, CubeSats. CubeSats are satellites 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters, 1 liter in volume, that have the same power that the big government satellites had 30, 40 years ago, that are now comprised in a very small form factor, and that can be launched in the hundreds by modern rockets. It's affordable. Launching your own satellite is now done by universities, by groups of students, by very small companies who develop an application and develop a satellite for that application, and you can have your own satellite for a mere few 10,000s of euros. In fact, Estonia launched its first satellite a few years ago, EstCube-1, which was the first Estonian satellite, which was one of those 10 by 10 by 10 centimeter CubeSats. And if I am informed correctly, they are about, or they have already launched EstCube-2, another CubeSat developed at an Estonian university. It's accessible. That's what I'm trying to say. It's accessible to anyone really who wants to launch a satellite. You don't have to be a large country anymore. Anyone can get the money together to create their own satellite. And we see new companies doing these launches. It's no longer government launch organizations like NASA, but we have companies like SpaceX that everybody's heard about, that organize rideshare launches. We saw last January the first dedicated rideshare launch by SpaceX, launching 148 satellites on one rocket into orbit in one go. And all those 148 satellites were these small, affordable satellites by commercial companies. Many of them were European. We see a company like Rocket Lab developing small launchers, small launcher to very cost effectively bring very small payloads into orbit. But most of the money, and that's really important, and that's where I earn most of my money, is in the applications of space. It's not so much the space technology, the space infrastructure, what we in space call the upstream element of space, but it's in downstream. It's the data that all these satellites together, these hundreds, thousands of satellites, bring us every day on weather, on Earth observation, on satellite navigation, on everything you can think of, television signals, radio signals that these satellites provide. And the money really is in the data, in the downstream applications of this space infrastructure. Something else that many people don't know, although they should, is the European Commission has developed the biggest Earth observation project in the world. So by launching the Sentinel satellites, as they call them, there are 7 in space right now. There will be 21 in a few years, all looking at our planet in different bandwidths from different angles, providing different types of information that provide us an enormous amount, many terabytes every day of information about our planet, about climate, about urbanization, about mobility, about farming, about the quality of the water, about transport. Lots and lots of different application areas that are supported by this biggest Earth observation system in the world that was developed and operated here in Europe. So if you haven't heard of it, look up Copernicus. That's the name of the system, and you'll find a lot of information about that. And this is a lot of the work that I do, is promoting, for example, these Earth observation applications for my clients. Now, moving back to me and my business. So I have a Dutch passport, but I live in the UK at the moment, but I am one of those digital nomads. I'm probably going to hang around in the UK for quite a while, but I don't know what the future holds. And as I said, I lived quite a while in Spain after I left the Netherlands. I became an Estonian e-resident in 2019. I founded my Estonian OU in 2020, and I run a global business. So what is my business? My business is me. It's a one-man band. I am one of those freelancers that Mats talked about. The company is just me, and I provide my services on a freelance basis to my clients all around the world. I offer social media marketing campaigns. I do social media and online marketing training, consulting. I do a lot of work for space events that used to be offline, but obviously for the same reason as this event is online, most space events are now online. So I used to travel around the world, but obviously I travel around my office right now doing events online with people from all over the world. But My business, as I work in social media, is almost 100% online, and it's almost 100% from home or from the road. If I do events, I still work online, but I often attend events all around the world to report about it on social media. That, in a nutshell, is my business. And by the way, for those people who know about the Dutch space industry, this is the rocket that took André Kuipers to the International Space Station in 2011. 2 people were there from the Netherlands as tourists, if you like, to watch the launch. And that was me and another completely crazy guy to watch this launch at -30 in December of 2011. Now, in line with what Mats just showed us is the roadmap. So this is my roadmap, my journey towards my Estonian business. So until a few years ago, I didn't know about the e-Residency program, obviously. And I found out because a few of my friends were e-residents and they talked about it. And I saw that a good friend of mine from Turkey, he had a business address in Estonia, and I had no idea whether he had ever been to Estonia, so we talked about it, and that's how I got involved, got to know about the e-Residency program. So in 2019, I got my e-Residency. I picked up my card at the embassy in London. As a Dutch national, you can pick it up wherever is closest to you. In my case, I live half an hour outside of London. And I started to attend a few e-Residency events, very similar to this one, although they were held at the embassy in London back in those days, just to find out what the opportunities were and what the reasons for me could be to move my business from the UK to Estonia. I had a UK sole proprietorship type business, and that served me quite well. The UK is actually quite a friendly country for entrepreneurs, and if you don't need a limited company or a BV equivalent in Dutch, the UK is very, very easy to do business. It's all online. It's as simple as it is in Estonia. However, we had this little issue here in the UK called Brexit that for me was a reason to start looking more into keeping my business in Europe. So I became a member of ERICA. I can highly recommend you. That's the Association of e-resident businesses in Estonia. I think it's the Chamber of Commerce type thing, but it's an association with like-minded people who have businesses in Estonia to exchange information. They organize online events, they organize offline events once that's possible. But it's a great way, in addition to the e-residence organization itself, to get information and to just talk to fellow entrepreneurs who run their business in Estonia. Then Brexit started to come really close, and I started to look deeper into it, decided that I wanted to create my business in Estonia. So I started to compare the service providers that Mats talked about earlier. I selected one of them. I registered my business through them. I opened a bank account with Wise. I did not have to travel to Estonia for that. It was all online. And I started trading. Simple as that. And then my service provider provides a monthly online bookkeeping system, which is really simple. As a freelancer, my administration is relatively simple. I don't buy a lot. I don't have hundreds of clients, so my administration is relatively simple. So it's very easy to do that online. And this is really how I started to run my Estonian business, which I have been doing until today. Some lessons I learned along the way. Starting a business in Estonia is most suitable for a limited type company called an OU in Estonia. So it's the equivalent of a BV in the Netherlands, a limited company in the UK. That is really what most of these service providers focus on. So if you are a freelancer and you have like a sole proprietorship business, that's a slightly different thing. That your e-residency is maybe less suitable for. But if you want to have a limited type company, it's the way to go. Service providers differ in the services that they provide. Some are more suited for freelance, for small companies. Some are more suited towards slightly larger companies, different business types. So just look at the marketplace on the website, the e-Residency website, and compare these companies. Maybe talk to them to see if they can provide the services that you need for your specific business. I quickly found out there's no need to pay the €2,500 share deposit, which, by the way, in Netherlands is much higher if you want to start a BV, which for some people could be a barrier of starting a business, especially when you're a small business like me. The Dutch mandatory share deposit is quite high. In Estonia, it's 2,500, and you don't have to pay it straight away. I'm not an expert in all this, but this is just my lessons learned, and I'm sure that that the people talking after me can tell you a lot more about that. Everything is online. Everything. So what we just heard about the bank, that's probably true if you need a specific business bank for loans, but if you go with a fintech provider, that can be dealt with easily online. I have not traveled to Estonia to start my business or to run my business one single time. I've been to Estonia, but for different reasons. I also found out there's a VAT threshold, because I was going through the process of registering for VAT in Estonia when my provider told me, hey, for revenues up to €40,000, you do not have to register for VAT, which makes it very easy because I do not have to have a VAT administration. Again, for a freelancer like myself, that's a big burden. So I'm really happy as long as I stay under €40,000 revenue, that I do not have to deal with VAT at all. Banking with Wise, easy and free. I'm a very happy customer with Wise. It works very easily. Everything is online. Everything's on my phone. It's super easy. Tax, however, is a different story. Tax is complicated. I pay my income tax here in the UK because I'm a UK resident, and this is different in every country and different in every situation. So I completely agree with Matt's advice to ask a specialist for that. Estonia is also not a tax haven. It's not an escape to pay your taxes. So be very clear about that. It's not a way to escape Dutch taxes. It's just a different way of organizing your business. And Estonia has to comply with the same EU regulations that any country in the EU, including the Netherlands, has to comply with. So in summary, business in Estonia, for me, it's flexible. I can go live wherever I want without changing my business address. It's definitely cost effective. It's much cheaper than running a Dutch BV. It's easy, and it's a legal entity in the European Union. Again, for me, Brexit was a very important reason to go to Estonia, and I wanted my business to remain legally in the European Union, which it is right now. So, dank voor uw aandacht, and please connect with me on my website or on any of my social media channels, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Back to you, Eva.
Yes, thank you. I see that there are questions popping up in the Q&A tab. But before we go to these, we'll short polls. So please, you should have a question on your screen, question to attendees. And the question is quite simple. Please vote. Do you already have an Estonian company? Yes, no. Choose one option and vote. We'll come to these results in a moment, but let me already check some of the questions because we do have quite several already. So I'll take some of them that are specifically meant for Remco. For example, which other countries did you consider to move your business with, and how do they compare? Mark, question from Mark.
Yeah, very simple. As a Dutch national, of course, I looked at the Netherlands for my company. I looked at the UK because, well, that's where I live, and I didn't look much further. I know you can look at tax havens and their organizations offering businesses in like Gibraltar or on the Cayman Islands. That's not the type of business that I want. So no, I just compared the UK, Netherlands, and Estonia, and to me, And the UK, although I had my business in the UK, I moved to Estonia after Brexit, mostly for Brexit reasons, and because the fact that in Estonia, especially when you don't live in the Netherlands as a Dutch national, it is much easier to start your business than in the Netherlands itself. Plus, it's cheaper.
Thank you. I have another one for you from Susanna. This is quite a long one, so try to follow me. Dear Remco, although you shift from one place to another as digital nomad, you are Dutch citizen, and probably the Dutch taxation authorities might regard you or as a letterbox business to save taxes in the Netherlands, and therefore doubts the activities to be in Estonia, but assumes them to be in the Netherlands. All taxation agreements seem to cause some trouble on man freelancers, as the tax authorities of citizenship regard any intellectual work as done on the grounds of the country of citizenship. So, how about your experiences during the last years, doing your Dutch annual tax declarations? How did the Dutch authorities regard that?
Yes.
How did they agree, or the Estonian company is not only officially in Estonia, but also taxed as company in Estonia and not in the Netherlands?
Yeah, so since I'm not a Dutch resident, I do not pay tax in the Netherlands anymore. I've been living in the UK for over 2 years now, so I'm a UK tax resident. But the question is the same between the UK and Estonia as it is between the Netherlands and Estonia. At the moment, I still have a registered business here in the UK, like a sole proprietorship, so not a limited company, through which I do my UK income tax. So I pay income taxes over all my revenues in Estonia, here in the UK, and all the money that I make through my Estonian OU, I transfer to the UK and pay income tax over that. Have I had any troubles? Well, let's say not yet. As many of you online, I probably still have quite a few questions about taxation, because this is a difficult area that requires specialized help. And since I've only been doing this for less than a year, I haven't run into too many of these issues now. But I do pay my income tax in the UK over the money that I transfer from Estonia.
I would jump in that, yes, we have a lot of cases similarly that sometimes people have two companies, one for all their domestic work in the country where they live and one for the international projects. And it is a gray area totally, but what is very important that you always do the personal tax right. So whatever dividends you draw from an international company, you always pay your personal income tax in the country that you stay. That is like crystal clear. And otherwise, of course, that talk to a tax advisor that knows both countries, and we have prior launched that can hopefully help you there.
Good. There is, let me see, maybe one, we'll come to the tax issues, of course, in a while, but just one thing, because it's for Remco again. You mentioned tax is complicated. So which issue did you have exactly? So maybe you can say what was your experience, your issue, and what was the solution for this one?
Yeah, my main, well, there's two things really. One that I now have an answer for, which was VAT, about VAT registration. I had been VAT registered in Netherlands for quite a while, and it was always a big headache to do the VAT, how do you say that? For the whole VAT administration with the government. That I found out that luckily Estonia doesn't have. That's, by the way, the same in the UK. If you earn under £85,000 as a sole proprietor, you are exempt from VAT, which makes that aspect from business very easy in the UK. But I was happy to find that it was the same in Estonia, albeit for a slightly lower threshold. And the other issue is exactly what we were talking about just now. And I'm not 100% done with my corporate tax versus income tax. How do I transfer? What's the best way to transfer legally? Let's put it very clearly, legally take the money that my Estonian OU is making, and how to legally bring that into the UK as my personal income. And I still have a few questions. I'm not done there yet. So some more guidance for e-residents in general, may be helpful, because this is probably one of the biggest barriers. I see this question and I understand the question, and for me that was one of the biggest barriers of going to Estonia as well, because now instead of dealing with one country, you're dealing with two, and in my case even with three, if you take the Netherlands into the equation as well, and it makes it very difficult. And as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure that everybody online agrees, you don't want to be dealing with this. You didn't start a business to work on your bookkeeping every day. You do your business because, in my case, I want to do social media for cool space companies, and I want to have as less hassle as possible. So yeah, those were the two major issues. VAT was easy, as long as you stay below the 40,000 euro threshold, and the tax, you need a specialist. Let's keep repeating it. Ask a specialist, really important.
Thank you, Remco. We'll talk to you in a while during the question and answer session again. Let's take now this poll that we had. The question was, do you all have an Estonian company? So we have 7 persons saying yes and 26 saying no. So I guess you are still interested in it. And then for both of the options, yes or no, actually the next presentation will be very relevant as well, because we'll take the legal issues, the taxation issues of running a global company via e-Residency now. And the presentation will be in Jukava, who is from the One Office. One Office is the provider of key support services to e-residents running global businesses in Estonia. And Tõnis is the head of sales at One Office. So Tõnis, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening. I see that the participants who came in, they have stayed. So Mats's and Remco's presentations were interesting, I assume, for you. But I had everything prepared, but I noticed that this taxation topic really is the main thing that you want to know, and Remco already covered some of the things to consider, but I'll just start my presentation in the middle for that reason. Let's just keep this taxation topic going. It's something that is important, and I can give you some of the general rules about taxation. But again, as Remco said, as Mats said, if you have a specific plan, specific business idea in mind, then please do consult with the specialist. And Mats already referred Andra from Priolange, so definitely you can contact her. But you get best advice from your local tax advisors in Holland, if you live in Holland. But yeah, I'll go into this now. Let me share my screen. So, Mats, can you give me thumbs up if you can see my screen? Remco, good. So the tax aspects, I'll cover the rest of my presentation later, but let's just start with the taxes. So taxes have to be paid somewhere. So that's a true fact. And then each case is different. But maybe 2 things just to think about. One thing is your tax residency. So let's assume you're living in Holland. I saw a question about salaries and everything like that. So salaries are based on your tax residency, also on your employees' tax residency. If your employees are in Germany, living in Germany, and they are tax residents in Germany, then their salary taxes are paid there. Same for you. If you live in Holland and you're self-employed in your company that is located in Estonia, then your tax residency is in Holland or in the Netherlands, then you pay your salary taxes there. So that's the first topic. Remco, for example, pays his salary, if he pays himself salary, he pays it in the United Kingdom because he's a tax resident there. So it doesn't matter what's his actual citizenship, it's where the tax residency is. Tax residency also affects another thing, which is your dividend income. Remco also already mentioned this a little bit, but basically the profits he's taking out from the Estonian company is called dividends. He's transferring it to his UK company, but you can as a private person receive it as well. So if you as a private person receive it in Holland, in the Netherlands, then you pay the dividend tax in Estonia, the corporate tax, but personal income tax in the Netherlands. And what you have to do is you have to actually open the tax treaty between Estonia and Holland and see what's written there. Because one thing for sure is that you have to pay a personal income tax in Holland if you take out that profit. But the other thing is to consider also the corporate tax rate in the Netherlands. I checked the treaty that Estonia and Holland have. And for most of the companies, it should be additional 7% of income tax on the corporate profits, plus your personal taxes that you pay. So again, it depends whether where is your tax residency, how much tax you pay, and it also depends on the tax treaty that has been drafted between the country where you are a tax resident in and between Estonia. Estonia has tax treaties between like 56 or something like that countries. So most developed countries are covered. So if you're a digital nomad, this can affect you as well. But a lot of the times, because of this tax residency issue, people choose to locate to other countries, for example, to Indonesia, to Bali, because they can get some tax benefits in that country. I really cannot address what's the tax rate there. But if you choose a country where the personal income taxes are lower and the corporate income taxes are lower, then you're winning anyway. But this one benefit for a Estonian company will always remain, and this is the fact that your profits are only taxed when you take it out. So if you leave it in the company, you reinvest it into the company's equipment, or you just try to grow the company. So in that case, the government will not tax the corporate tax rate in Estonia. And yeah, you can also invest into stocks and all different kinds of things. So it doesn't have to be with your company-related business, actually. That's another benefit in Estonia, that you don't have to keep your company focused only in one area. The owner of the Estonian company can always invest the company's money into some other endeavors. So that's up to you. So I covered all of the Remco's concerns. The VAT taxation also, Remco was on point that it's the threshold is 40,000 euros in Estonia. If you reach that turnover, that income, then you will need to apply for an Estonian VAT number, or you actually in European Union you have the option to also apply for, I don't know, German VAT number. You don't have to apply in Estonia. You can apply in some other country that is more relevant for your business, for example. Which actually brings me to the second slide, which is another really complicated taxation topic, actually. And it is affected by your tax residency and your location, and also the nature of your business. So this is permanent establishment, and this is again something that Andra really gave me a good overview. And then in a lot of countries in EU, the situation is similar. It's the same rules. So wherever you might be located in European Union, the same permanent establishment issue or rule can apply. But again, it's decided by the local authorities. But in Holland, the situation is this. So whenever you are living and managing your company from the Netherlands, then according to the Netherlands laws, you have a permanent establishment in the Netherlands, which means that some of your income will be taxed in the Netherlands. There are some exceptions to this. For example, if you're managing, yes, your company from the Netherlands, but you also have like an employee in Estonia, or also another board member or board location here in Estonia or in some other country, then it can be considered that your company is actually managed from that location. So it's the location where the company is managed from. But if it's managed from the Netherlands, then you will have a permanent establishment in the Netherlands, and then you have to pay some of the income tax there in the Netherlands, if that occurs, of course. And again, I checked it. I think with the Estonian company, it's 12%. But I hope after this meeting, we can send you the recording. And in the recording, I can add my links to relevant places where you can actually check the tax rates. But again, since each company's situation is different, then I recommend contacting a tax expert who will say that, hey, with this company, with your business, you're managing it from this place, you have clients in that place, then your tax rates are going to be this and that. So that's really important to know where the company is managed from. The other thing is that when you're selling your goods permanently in one location, again, let's take the situation, you're in the Netherlands, you're managing company from that from Netherlands, but you permanently sell your goods only in Denmark, let's say Denmark. Then again, you have to look into Danish legislation to see if you will create a permanent establishment there. There's usually some kind of like a threshold or the number, volume of sales you've done there, or how big your clients are, or something like that. So each client, each country might have a separate rule here as well. But usually it's a threshold, and it's usually 40,000 euros, similar to VAT threshold. So if you reach that, then the first registration that you should do in this Danish example is that you need to get the VAT number there as well. So constantly keep in mind, where are you managing your company from? Does it create a permanent establishment there? The other thing to consider is, where are your clients are located? If you constantly sell to that country, to those clients, will it create a permanent establishment there? And this is why it's really, really hard to say that, hey, for you people in Netherlands, the tax rate is going to be X amount. It's impossible, because each one of you has different idea in mind what to do. Maybe you want to relocate to Estonia. You will get all the tax benefits when you're in Estonia, a resident here. Or maybe you want to go live in Bali or some other country, location in the world, which has better tax laws for personal income rates and so on. So it all depends, and you really need to seek out for a professional who can take a look at your case and then let you know that this is going to be the result of you doing the business this way. But yeah, the tax benefits still, I mean, there is a lot of things to consider. Remco has his things in the UK, you in Holland have your things to consider. But as I said, the main benefit still remains, which is that your profit in Estonia will only be taxed when you take out the profits. If you keep it in the company and reinvest it, then luckily the Estonian government will not touch it. It's been so for 21 years now, and we don't see any law changes in this regard, because it's really been boosting our economy. And to be fair, it's why tax somebody who's not making any money? If your profit is €5 per year, then why tax it? I mean, take it out. When you take it out for yourself to use it in the economy, then it's fair to tax the company as well. So that's the logic we're using, and that's the business environment you can consider when you're doing business in Estonia. So again, this law is really good for growing and startup businesses, for digital nomads, as I said, people who are location independent and move around a lot. And if you choose like a really good tax residency place, or a place where it has good tax laws, Puerto Rico, for example, I know that's a really good place where to be, warm as well. So those places, in those places you can get the most benefits. And the other thing is that if you really physically bring some of your business here into Estonia, you will have an office here or some employees, then also your management is there in Estonia, here in Estonia, and you get more of the benefits, and you might not be taxed so much in Holland because of your permanent establishment there, or your income generated from those in that country. So these are the general benefits and general rules that you need to consider. I'm already assuming there will be a lot of questions in the Q&A about this topic, but what's best to do is just let's look them over after my presentation, and I'll try to go over the logic again with different phrasing, different wording, and maybe answer some of the questions directly as well that I can answer. But the rest of my presentation, I hope the tax part didn't make you sleepy. So this is the headline of my presentation. Just a little bit about One Office. We actually, why we know a lot about international taxation and that international law is that we actually provide services in 6 different countries. Also in UK, by the way. So Remco, if you need help, then let me know. So we can help great companies in UK as well. If you want to expand to Sweden from Estonia, then we have a branch there. So there are variety where you can expand your company with the help of one office. And most of our clients are actually foreign entrepreneurs. We do have local clients, but most are outside of Estonia. And there are actually a lot of companies as our clients, and then we have quite good systems to maintain them. And then it's so easy in Estonia. That's why we can actually have so many clients with only 40 specialists. It's not overwhelming. This also was covered by Mats. I'm not going to go into details. Let's focus on questions and answers. I think that's more important. But why to choose Estonian companies? So again, the same things that Mats highlighted and Remco also went over is that the process is online. You can be wherever you want to be to open the company. The only thing that you need to do, go outside to the embassy or the closest pickup location. You can pick it up from any available pickup location, the e-Residency card. And once you have it, then travel wherever and open the company using your computer and the e-Residency card. Also, the bureaucracy level is really, really low. Company formation takes 1 day. Applying for VAT number takes 1 day. So when we submit your financial report for the whole year, we compose it, we upload it to the e-tax office, you sign it, and it's submitted. So it's really fast. The low bureaucracy also translates into cost, which also Remco mentioned. The setup and management costs are really low, and then it's the result of the low bureaucracy amount. Again, going over that, you don't have to come to Estonia and use Estonian banks. You have that option. But we usually recommend online banking, fintech solutions. TransferWise already was mentioned, new name Wise, but there are also several hundreds of others like N26, Revolut in the UK, Paysera, Stripe, Payoneer, already mentioned companies. There's so many of them. So just Google on the internet, ask the service provider if this is like a good trusted solution, ask e-Residency if this is a good trusted solution. So that's how you will find the best banking for yourself, for your company. Being part of these international organizations is also good. So although we are a small country, and when you mentioned that your company is located in Estonia, we're still part of this big international organization. So it's reliable. Mike went over the indexes and places where we are in business environment, different indexes. So we are in a good place. So we're a trusted nation in that sense. And before you start, you're already doing this while watching the presentation, but do your research. Think about your business model and then the requirements that you need to fill to maybe later open an Amazon account, a PayPal account, or whatever account. So all of that needs to be part of your research. Also the taxes, again, do the research by contacting a professional. It's really hard to find reliable information online. Of course, you can get information from service providers that are on e-Residency website, including one office. But again, each situation is specific. So the information you're getting is general. You need to get specific information about your tax situation. Also think about the ownership and management structure. Remco has a structure where the sole proprietorship company is connected with the Estonian company. You might just be the only owner of the company if you're opening the Estonian company, or you can open the company with your Netherlands company. So 100% is owned by Netherlands company. So there are different things you can set up. Also, the management board can be different, different people from different areas. It's up to you, but just think about it, ask advice from one office or some other provider. Then again, think about your company name. Some names are already taken or trademark protected. So just have a couple of them ready if actually starting to open the company, then you don't have to waste time on picking a new name. Share capital amount, Remco, good to mention that you don't have to pay it in immediately, but this is one condition you have to fill to get out the profits from the company. So if you want to pay dividends, then share capital has to be paid. The other condition is that you have to submit your first annual report. So before your first annual financial year has not ended, there's no need to pay in the share capital at all. It's mainly needed so you could take out the dividends. And the last point already mentioned so many times. So the legal aspects also, as I mentioned, it's really simple. Once you have the e-residency card, just waiting time for the e-residency card is long, but you use that time to do the research, as I mentioned earlier. But opening the company takes only 1 day. There are some responsibilities from the legal side as well that you have to consider. I'll go into each one of them separately. One thing you need to consider is that you have to have a local address in Estonia. It can be an apartment. So if you come and live in Estonia, you can use your apartment as an address for the company. But as most of our clients are not in Estonia, they don't have any property in Estonia, then licensed service providers like OneOffice offer such services. And we offer you an address, but along with that, you also get a contact person, which is actually, it's like a legal entity. It's not actual contact person who does something for you. It's a legal entity that is responsible of forwarding all of the government's information to your company's management board. So it's just an extra regulation that is covered by most of the service providers. But yeah, use the ones that are in e-Residency website or contact me after this webinar, and then I'll give you the overview how to proceed with your idea. So accounting and annual reporting. Accounting has to be done at least once per year. Then you submit the annual report. If you want to do monthly accounting, then you do it every month. And then the annual report is an additional thing that your accountant does. But it's far easier to do the annual report if you've done the accounting every month, because all the information banking has been transferred to your accountant, and then submitting and filing the report is really easy. So if you want to basically avoid big annual report fees, take monthly accounting option, and it's far easier that way. But with some businesses, for example, Remco's business or some other training consultation businesses, it sometimes is easier to submit an annual report, and it's actually more cost effective. But again, it depends on the volumes, depends how many banks you're using and so on. So this is something that, again, ask from your service provider whether it's better to have monthly option or yearly option. But the only obligation is to submit the annual report. So that's it from accounting side. But there is exception, and this comes with the VAT registration. So if you apply for a VAT number in Estonia, then you have to report on that number every month. And then you need monthly accounting. So that's the exception. But again, if you don't reach that 40,000 euro threshold, then you don't have to apply for the VAT number. And then you don't have to do the monthly accounting. So this is basically one and only obligation that your company has in Estonia, or basically there's two obligations. You have to have address here in Estonia, and you have to at least once per year submit the annual report. If those are done, then you're actually all good to proceed with your next financial year and continue your business. Share capital, already went over this, but again, this is the minimum requirement is 2,500 euros, and you can open the company without it. We recommend paying it in once your first annual report has been submitted. Then you pay in the share capital amount, and then you have the possibility to take out your profits from the company. So this is the general logic how to proceed. But some companies haven't paid it in for 5 years or longer. They just accumulate their profits in the company, and when they're ready, they pay the share capital, submit the annual report, and then withdraw the dividends. Tax aspects, okay, again, I will not go over them again. I already covered it. The steps, I mean, Remco might already went over this. Apply for e-Residency, contact the service provider, open the company, open the bank account, and start your activities. All in all, maybe if you already have the card, then it takes like 3 or 4 days. Even the bank accounts are really easily, really fast opened, especially with TransferWise and such online banks. But just about it from my side, I just want to speak about OneOffice a little bit and why you should choose us. We have taken direction that we specifically tailor our services to you. for your needs, which means that in the beginning, when you start the conversation, we exchange emails, we have calls, we will eventually give you the total cost of your company, and there will be no hidden fees. So we'll try to be as transparent as possible so you wouldn't have any bad surprises later. So you at least know what costs are associated with keeping your Estonian company operational for the, I don't know, next year, for example. Also, we have this international experience. We have many locations, Latvia, Lithuania, Sweden, Finland, and the UK. So if you want to expand or hire employees from those countries, we can support you fully. We also have accountants there, so everything basically can be covered. Open the company with one office is really fast, one day. If you use my one office platform, it's a self-service kiosk. You get everything from there basically, and you can later manage your company from there as well. Useful knowledge base articles, secure data transfer, this contact person information. So if government sends you something, then it has to be securely sent to you. Or if like your partner sends you something to here in Estonia, we will have to securely put it in my one office. We cannot simply scan it and email the contract to you. It's basically you're liable for whatever can be liable for in that situation. Can be dangerous, so we have made the system really secure. And then that's why you should choose my one office, is that we've heard that a lot of businesses do still, or service providers do send data over emails. This is not okay anymore. So definitely choose someone who you can trust that is keeping your data protected. And then from my one office platform, basically you can manage everything, your invoices, your expenses, you get free knowledge base articles, you get translations, contracts, everything. So I just recommend Googling it. It's free to join the platform, but yeah, once you open the company, you have to pay for those services. But yeah, you can choose you can log into the platform and at least see what we offer there. And here's the general cost of setting up the company. So this is again general, like taxes. But I could say that if you have e-Residency card, then the total cost to open the company along with the address and contact person is 555 euros plus VAT. The first invoice can be paid by your, I don't know, Netherlands company or whatever company you might have. So you can use the VAT number and get the VAT reverse charge. So 555 euros flat. But if you're paying as a private person, then you have to pay the VAT amount. Then the annual costs, we have considered the minimum monthly fee 65 euros. So that would be if you take the monthly accounting along with the annual report and address, and this would be your management cost for the whole year. But again, if you don't take monthly accounting fee, accounting service, you just keep with the annual report, then the annual report fee can be higher. But it might not be that high. It might not be 12 times 65. So it can be usually for consultation businesses or IT businesses, it's around like 300 or 400 euros per year. So you actually win when taking only the annual report and not doing monthly accounting. But yeah, usually service providers also subscribe clients as their address service users. So that's also something that you renew every year. But if you relocate to Estonia, again, you can easily with your e-Residency card change your company's address to a new location. So that's, nothing is fixed in stone, so you can easily change everything about your company. Once it's registered, you have the freedom to choose what to do next. And thank you so much. I hope I gave you some clarity how to proceed and what the taxes are going to be and what legal aspects to consider. I would like you to contact me if you have any questions. Contact also Andra from Pre-Launch and give us a call, give us an email, let us know if there's any questions. And then thank you from my side.
Sorry, if ever you allow me to jump in very quickly, just wanted to say that One Office is really our very long-term partner that has capacity to deal with many different and really industries and situations. So it's been a really good cooperation with them. But about maybe multi-shareholder companies, because this is something that was briefly touched on. So that's also one reason why e-Residency is popular, that sometimes people the shareholders will live and work in very different countries, they can do all the paperwork digitally, and that's a big asset. And in the same way, the tax also in that case, the corporate taxation of the company is also more blurry because it isn't managed from one country as such.
Yeah, it can get really complicated, because we have companies who do, I don't know, e-commerce plus something completely different. I don't know, construction. They do e-commerce in UK and they do construction in Sweden. And the owner is, I don't know, Holland company and 2 private persons. So that can be your situation as well. So everything that basically your imagination is the limit with Estonia and e-Residency and with one office. So just let us know what you want to do. Everything is possible, basically.
And the other key aspect is that once you have a setup, once you know where you need to pay your taxes, actually paying tax in Estonia is very simple. I mean, that's very easy. That's not what you need consultants for. You need a consultant just to analyze your setup before you start a company. That's what I wanted to share about as well. But now I guess we can go to questions. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you. I see you have a lot of questions, a lot of sort of case studies already where about different taxing issues. So I don't know, Tõnis, how you'd like to proceed with questions, because maybe there are some opportunities to generalize a bit, or just to say what the most important factors are, because I guess in a lot of cases the answer depends on a lot of different aspects. So maybe you can choose a bit and use some questions as examples.
Mm-hmm. I saw one of the first questions was from Yvette about VAT taxation and income tax in relation to Estonia plus the Netherlands. For example, if you have a client in Estonia, invoice from e-business in Estonia. So, okay, let's take an example. You have an Estonian company. You have an Estonian VAT number, and you now invoice a private person in Estonia. So this private person receives your, I don't know, whatever the service is or product, and pays for it. Since you have the VAT number here in Estonia, it's 20%. You will add that to your invoice. And then your accountant, once the money is in your bank account, then your accountant at the end of the month will report on that paid VAT. So actually, the person who's buying your goods or services is paying the tax. You just have to report on that. So that's the VAT part in your example. If the client is some other country, then they actually also have to pay the VAT amount in Estonia, because you have the VAT number here in Estonia. But you can have VAT numbers in other countries as well. So keep that in mind. VAT amounts in those countries are different. Now, income tax. There are 2 income taxes, basically, one for the company and one for the private person. In Estonia, those are linked. So if you have an Estonian company, you live in Estonia, then you pay corporate income tax 20% only once when you take out the profits. And you don't have to pay personal income tax. In your case, Yvette, I assume you live in some other country, not in Estonia. You pay the corporate income tax in Estonia, 20% if you take out the dividends. But now you have to consider where you're currently located, where you're tax resident in. Do you also have to pay some corporate income tax on that income in your country? Usually it's mentioned in double taxation treaty, tax treaty. Check out Holland and Estonia tax treaty, how much that is. It should be 7%, but each case can be separate. So you pay that 7% corporate tax, and then I assume you know your local laws, what are your personal taxes on that income. So you have to pay that as well. So that's the usual setup. Let me see. What else? I saw also Louise Honken. I've actually had, I think, even phone conversation with Louise, so I'm really glad that you're listening. I hope you're still there. But your question is really good. It's about employees and which taxes you need to consider. First example for you was that when the employees are in Estonia, then you have to consider that you have to register the employees in Estonia, and the salary taxes are paid in Estonia. And so most service providers who offer accounting services can support you to have Estonian employees. If the employees are e-residents, then there is no benefit in that if your employees are not living in Estonia. So, but if they're already living in Estonia, then you don't need e-residency card. But basically, e-residency will not help you with your employees because the salaries are taxed in the country where the employees are located or tax residents in. So that's the main thing to consider. Where are your employees living and paying their taxes? And that's where you as a company also have to pay the salary taxes. And if it's outside of EU, then the same logic applies. If there are some salary taxes in that Asian country in place, then you most likely as a company are eligible to pay that salary tax. In some countries, the law is that actually the employee has to pay the salary taxes. So depends on the country. But the general fist rule is that thumb rule is that just take your employee's location, it's their tax residency, and the taxes of that salary are taxed in that country. So maybe has anybody else in the panel found something that I should answer? Because now I just have to scroll them until I find another appropriate one.
I think, yeah, we can take turns and sort of scroll them over as they come. There was yeah, another question on salary taxation. I would say that director's fee in general is a one part that normally can be taxed in Estonia. But yeah, it is not problematic at all for you to hire yourself for an Estonian company and actually do the personal tax where you are. I mean, that's done very often. And also in some cases, for example, we have a case where there's two owners of a company. One lives in Switzerland, one lives in Korea, and both countries are okay that the corporate taxation is done in Estonia, but then they personally hire themselves in the countries respectively and do then their personal income tax and their personal salary taxes in Switzerland and Korea. So we see that quite a lot.
I'll just take another one about taxes again. Jesus Alviares is asking. I think the question was for Remco, but basically he said, you pay income taxes as a natural person in the UK because you're a tax resident in the UK. That was understood. But your company taxes, where do you pay them? Since all your activities are performed mostly in the UK, doesn't the UK consider your company as a tax resident in the UK? You live there for more than 120 days per year, right? So this question actually consists of two parts again. And then I'll just try to rephrase the thoughts that we already went through. But basically, yes, if you're doing your business only in one location, then this goes to that permanent establishment slide that I have. Let's say you are in the Netherlands, owning an Estonian business and doing all of your business in the UK. Now you need to contact the UK tax expert and ask whether you will have permanent establishment in the UK, and if you do, how much tax you have to pay in the UK. I don't know UK laws by heart. There might not be such law in place at all. Who knows? But each country's situation is different. If you're living in the UK, then this is another thing. It's not the permanent establishment only, it's also your tax residency. So again, your salary taxes are going to the UK. Your income that you're distributing to the UK where you live, you pay your personal income taxes in the UK on that, as Remco does. But yeah, it is really complicated because if you're doing international online business, then it's really hard to understand where your tax liabilities actually lie. And then that's why it's the best to have this rule in your head that focus on the country where most of your clients are located. Focus on that first, and then if you expand gradually, then you can focus on other countries as well. But in EU, if you pay already some taxes in one country, then you're at least good from that part. But you, again, need to consider that you might have tax liabilities in other countries as well, if you permanently and only do business in that country.
I'll just jump in. There was a question about banking as well, and the Estonian companies, they can have a bank account with any EU IBAN. If you get an account with an sort of EU with a company with a fintech that can give you an EU IBAN, or even a bank in another member state, then that also works out. So you don't have to specifically use a fintech that is on our marketplace. You can also look at others. If they give you an account, no problem.
Yeah, just as an example, Mats, my bank account with Wise, they have a banking license in Belgium, so I have a Belgian IBAN number. Even though I don't live in Belgium, I have nothing with Belgium. None of my clients are there. My bank account is registered in Belgium.
I wanted to follow up with Louise Fonken again. He asked a follow-up question to be more specific about wages and taxes. He says, if wages taxes are paid at the location of the residency of the employee, it means we have to register the e-company in the location our employee lives to. So yeah, that is a possibility. But again, it depends on the location of your employee. Each country has different rules. But let's say you have an Estonian company and you want to get an employee from Latvia. I just have first-hand experience with Latvia because one of my e-Residency company client wanted to get an employee from Latvia. Then what we needed to do is register that employee, which was like 50 euros or something. And then we hired one accountant who does the payroll or basically pays the salary taxes. And that was like 65 euros per month. In that example, it was quite easy and cost effective. So not a big expense for you, maybe. But if your employee is in Germany, the situation can be completely different. Maybe registering the employee in Germany is so difficult that you don't want to get any employees from Germany. Maybe the salary taxes are so high there that your wage fund has to be so big in order the employee would be happy what they actually receive. So all of that needs to be considered. Asian countries usually have the lowest tax rates on salaries and so on. So maybe those countries, the registration process and everything like that is far simpler. So that's my answer. But Luis, thanks for asking. It's really important to know.
There's a question of also, can two e-residents start a partnership company in Estonia, and also if you sell physical products? So absolutely, as we covered before, it's for multi-shareholder companies, Estonia and e-residency is really good option in general. And with physical products, of course, you can do anything with a company that's legal, but just the question is that the tax question, it gets a little trickier with physical products. With tax. So analyze your case, please.
I'll take another one, and Remco, maybe you have something there as well. I haven't managed to check all of them, but I'll just take one like really typical scenario. And Sebastian is asking. There's something really easy to discuss. For Dutch tax residents, what are the rates for taking money out of our Estonian company in two scenarios? And there are those two scenarios are actually same in Estonia, and it's quite similar. So one, if you take the dividends out, and one as you take it as an income. So as an income, I assume you mean salary. So you have two ways to pay yourself. You pay yourself salary. You are the company owner. You have the option to pay yourself monthly salary, quarterly salary, or you take out dividends once or twice per year. 3 times per year is also okay, but if you do it 4 times per year, then the tax authorities might think that you're paying salary to yourself. So that's always a big question. Should you live in Estonia, Sebastian, I would recommend always to live off dividends, far less taxed and so on. But since I assume you're living in the Netherlands, then again, consider your tax obligations. You take out the dividends, you pay 20% here in Estonia. Then according to double taxation treaty, I think you pay 7% in the Netherlands for the corporate tax, because according to tax treaty, that's how it's outlined. And then you pay your personal income tax, but no salary, social security taxes, just the income tax. is that altogether bigger or smaller than your just normal salary taxes in the Netherlands? So that's the main question to ask. And then you can decide whether to take salary or to take dividends. Yeah, thank you. Next question.
There was a question from John Jaspers about you run a company in the UK and you were living in the UK and Poland and moving around a lot, and you didn't have a stable sort of tax residence in any country. We actually have a lot of people who are e-residents who consistently move around. They try to make sure that they don't have tax residency. So in that case, their normal corporate income taxes, it's especially beneficial because in Estonia, if you take out dividends, then you pay that one-time 20% of income tax. You don't pay any personal income tax on top of that. But also in your case, if you wanted to hire yourself for an Estonian company and sort of move around consistently, yes, it's possible. But it's about EU rules more that, let's say, stably live in the Netherlands, and then you pay your personal income tax in Estonia, and you sort of hire yourself in Estonia. That would be wrong for EU rules perspective. But if you keep traveling consistently, it should be doable in that way.
I have another really good point, and that's, I'm really happy that today we managed to finish the presentation so fast and we can actually focus on the questions. Antonio Fernandez is asking, where was this question? Okay. If you leave the money on the company's account, so the profit, you're leaving in the money on the company's account, you reinvest it, you don't pay any corporate tax in Estonia, correct? But if you are an EU resident and you thus have permanent establishment in some of the EU countries, do you need to pay corporate tax on the money that stays in company account? Basically, yes. If you will have a permanent establishment somewhere, then you most likely need to register it and submit some kind of income declarations on a yearly basis or something like that. For example, I have a really good example in Sweden, because a lot of Estonian companies branch out to Sweden, and then they either register permanent establishment or some other registration. There are several, so each country has several registrations that you can do. It depends on your situation. But if it's a permanent establishment in Sweden, then once per year, income declaration has to be submitted, and it's like 150 euros. So again, not a big amount, but on that income, I think they had to pay, was it like, I don't want to say any percentage, but yes, some of the income had to be paid to Sweden as well. But this was permanent establishment, and this was needed. Basically, the government contacted this client and said, hey, you need it. And then we did the registration. And this was because he did business in that country longer than 180 days, 183 days. So most EU countries have the similar rule that if you're doing business longer than 183 days per year, that's in case where you're actually on site, then you will have a permanent establishment in one of that EU country. So again, you can avoid creating that permanent establishment if you just contract your business. You don't do that much in that country. You do in different countries, and then you keep in mind the taxation rules that are behind that. So that's what we actually do with a lot of our clients, that when they want to enter into Swedish markets, we give them consultation about taxes and say that if you do this, you pay such taxes. If you keep your operations limited to 6 months, you don't pay these taxes, and so on. So ask a consultant. That's the best thing to do.
I see that we have almost come to the end, but I suggest that we take some extra minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because I guess all this information is really valuable and there are still questions to be answered. So everyone who needs to leave can do it easily anyway. So let's just proceed with some of the questions still.
I just wanted to direct this question to Mats, because I'm actually interested myself as well. One client is asking about closing the company, and it's a valid question. And generally, at this moment, as far as I know, there is, although setting up the business is really easy, fast, the closing process is not so fast. It's still easy for you because some service provider will do everything for you, but it's going to be a longer process, maybe 6 months or so.
I would say it's easy. It's really easy to do, and e-residents have done that. But the issue is more that there's a long period of time that the company has to hang there, and the government is sort of waiting if anyone has any claims against the company, and that period is a bit, I think, around 6 months, and that's something that we're looking at actually. That can we make that process smoother?
Yeah.
We have a question because also Estonian competitiveness internationally, bankruptcies and sort of this, like how to dissolve a company, something that is looked at. So we're working on it, let's say.
Yeah,
but
that's what I wanted to hear, because I remember that at some point we heard about making this liquidation much easier for clients. And then again, Mats is correct. It is easy. You can take your e-residency card and you issue your signature. But just the waiting time is a little bit longer in that sense, yeah. Antonio again is asking a brilliant question. Can you invest money in real estate or in cryptocurrency? Does in this case Estonia has to pay tax on corporate tax? Generally no, but if you receive interest rates on that real estate or crypto, then that is profit. If you take it out, then you have to pay the tax. So in that sense, and eventually when you distribute the dividends, yes, you still have to pay the tax. But if you have those investments, it will make your annual reporting a little bit more complicated, because you pay still the corporate tax only on the earned interests, not on the sum you put in. And then you put in 100,000, you get out 120,000, you're not going to pay on that 120,000. It would be oversimplified. So only that 20,000 profit that you made is taxed. Yeah, you can do it. But just keep in mind that you have to use the company's profits or your own money. So the owner can always give money to the company and invest that money, not the other way around, not all the time. But as soon as you're taking clients' money, for example, my money, I'm your client, you're taking my money and investing this money to crypto or real estate, then this is a financial service and you most likely need a license for that. So keep that in mind. Your own money, do what you want.
I see one here. Can you put all your travel costs as a digital nomad as costs from Mark? Would anyone like to comment on that?
Yes, I can comment that. It's called actually fringe benefits. Basically, your economic or business activity has to somehow reflect the costs you're incurring with the company. So I don't know if your business activity is, how to say, you get money for writing, I don't know, food reviews or something, then having a food at restaurant can be your business cost. But if you're doing e-commerce and you're traveling around, then basically it's not necessary for doing your business, and it's a fringe benefit, which is taxed at 25%. Which means that if you're taking out the profits again, then instead on that part, basically, for that part, you have to pay 25%, not 20%. So it's fringe benefit. You can look it up in Google. It's taxed a little bit differently. Basically, you can pay those costs with your company's bank account or bank card. But you just have to consider that it's a little bit higher cost for your company. It is a fringe benefit. I have one good thing that I actually forgot to mention in my presentation, and Susanne is asking this question basically, and I can answer. Again, returning to permanent location of activity. If a solo entrepreneur from Dutch, living in Dutch more than 183 days, owns an Estonian company, but his clients are worldwide, he does not know from the beginning from where the first client will come. So how to be sure that this Estonian company will not be taxed as capital company in the Netherlands? You might not know in the beginning. That is the situation. But what this actually refers to is that your clients eventually can be all over the world. And if you can prove to tax authorities in the Netherlands can approach you that I have seen you have like 2 clients in the Netherlands. Have you paid the income on that revenue or something similar? They turn to you. Then you have the obligation to prove them that most of your business is actually somewhere else. You're doing permanently business actually somewhere else. And these are like free cases. And I've actually seen this based on my own clients that they prove to the tax office that they don't have a permanent establishment in that particular country. And then they just provide invoices and bank statements for that. So, but yeah, it's quite hard if you don't haven't done your proper research. You don't know where your business is going to be located. In a sense, you don't know where your clients are coming from. Then you don't have the full picture about your taxation. That's correct.
Also, if you get a permanent establishment in the country where you reside, that doesn't mean that you have to do all the corporate taxes always in that country. So there are many setups actually. I know Netherlands also is a country of holdings actually, but holdings, it's a popular setup that, let's say, for example, a German e-resident has a PE in Germany. All the German business is done and taxed under that. But then he also has international clients. He also maybe has an employee in Estonia, maybe has another branch in Sri Lanka or US, and a lot of the international taxation is done through the Estonian company, and he can still win a lot from it. And also setting up the Estonian company is sometimes easier in some countries. Even the how much you have to pay in as a share capital dividend. I know it's not so high in the Netherlands, but in Switzerland it's sometimes 25,000. Swiss francs, for example, at least, right? So there are other benefits that you can do, and then, for example, also pay your director salary through the Estonian company. So yeah, there's still things you can win from.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I recommend doing is Google tax treaty between Estonia and your residency country. Start with that, and most taxes are already highlighted there. They don't mention specifics. But they mentioned that which part has to be covered by which party, which country. So you can, it's not the hardest read. It's quite understandable actually. But yeah, just go over that. And then that's the first point where to start off, and then move maybe to a professional consultant, as always.
I'd say the first starting point, hopefully, that you'll become e-residents if you're not there yet. And the second one is talk to one office and talk about one of your particular case, because they are good at tax and operating in various countries and also connected to prior launch. So if you have a good service provider, most of your problems will be solved, and they will tell you exactly whether your setup will work or not.
I actually don't see much more. That there are some questions, but those are like I'm answering again. I don't have any other ways to rephrase the taxation part other than I hope we can send like a follow-up to the listeners and give like links where to get relevant information. That would be nice. So
yes, I guess also we use the extra 10 minutes we talk about. So I guess you were willing to answer any questions, Mats, Remco, Tõnis, anything that was not answered, or maybe your answers created some new questions. So these can be sent via email to you, right?
Of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes, and it's also we have recorded this webinar, so this will be available later and can also be watched afterwards. So I think one office can send this link to all the participants with email as well.
I would just say a couple of things. Firstly, thanks to everyone for having us and having this webinar. I really appreciate the embassy is really working on e-residency and spreading the word from us. Also, Remco, really nice to meet you and get to know, because we have such a nice e-resident community of people who are passionate about what they do, and it's really nice that we can enable that in many ways. And also, Denisa, very good presentation. Thanks. We have things to learn from each other. What I want to say is that if you're not sure about becoming an e-resident, actually, if you become an e-resident, that doesn't really force you to do anything. You don't have any liability or any hard sort of anything you particularly need to do. So I would say that you can do that step if you're not quite sure yet whether to do a company, because once you have that card already there, it's already easier to get started. And our website also has a lot of resource. And if you want to learn more, first thing, sign up for a newsletter as well. Then you can get further information and events in the future. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I'll just say also some final words that, again, thank you for listening. Hopefully it was helpful for you. And again, contact us or e-Residency team. Those are the best places where to get reliable information right from the source, basically. And then the other channels you might use is Erika, as Remco also mentioned. I know a couple of people from there, so they are reliable. They want to honestly and transparently represent Estonian e-Residency and the businesses who do it here via e-Residency. But again, if you like to do it on social media, go to Facebook and search for e-Residents of Estonia, and then join that group. You get fast, good feedback. Of course, take it with a grain of salt, but still, you get a lot of useful information from there. And then maybe once you're in that community, you get better ideas for your business and so on. So something new for you to just keep an eye on. But thank you from one office side. Thank you all listening, and take care.
Good. So good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Let's hope that we'll have an opportunity to continue the discussion, maybe at some point over a cup of coffee during a real event. And thanks for joining us today.